Let's do it. Going live. And we should be live on Facebook now. It says here we are live. We're just waiting for it to set up. Waiting to confirm. Hello, everybody.
Hello,
yes,
hello.
We are officially live. There we go. And let me just change the view here. Yeah, so we're on gallery, so we should be able to see both of us. Yes, we can. Okay, excellent. Hello, gorgeous Sex Lab attendees. I am super excited to welcome the very first male to the Sex Lab Interview Tuesday series, the gorgeous Jeremy. Jeremy, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Can you, I don't want to like butcher it. How do I pronounce your last name? Is it Szucs? No, is that wrong? Szucs, totally wrong. Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's much simpler than
I was like,
yeah.
It is simpler than it looks. Isn't that like the theme for so many things in life? Simpler than we make it, hey? Lesson there. So thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for everyone that is watching this live. If you are joining us live, know that you can ask questions in the comments. We will answer them as they come up. If you are catching this as a replay, you can still obviously let us know you're here and drop your comments down below, and Jeremy will be keeping an eye on the comments so that he can answer them all for you. And you guys can engage with him and his epic story of transformation. And I think that's where I want to start today. We were chatting a little bit before I hit the live button about how Jeremy's actually journeying a very similar transformation to what I went through when I first finished my sexuality development certification with the Institute. Literally, I graduated in June, and on July 1st, I was moving across the country and starting a new life as, a sex coach, working with the Institute, teaching and facilitating with the Institute, and literally moving across the country in the middle of a pandemic. And Jeremy, it sounds like you're going through pretty much the same thing. So do you want to like walk us through the similarities and what your journey is looking like where you are at today?
Yeah, similarities. Yes, I'm still currently working as a tradesman, as you can see from my fluoros, and this is going to be my second last week that I ever plan to put the fluoros back on, per se, and enter into the trade. Still happy to use these hands to be handy, I guess you can say, but as far as picking them up to be employed by that's it. I'm done. I'm releasing that from my life, and stepping into the new paradigm, stepping into the uncomfortabilities of being a leader or in the new paradigm. And so just transitioning through that, and moving out of home after 20 years, flying the coop. So just a lot of big transitions happening at the moment, and moving interstate to go and immerse myself with people in the new paradigm, as you could say. So just feeling all the feels, all the resistances, all the stories that are popping up, digging through bits and pieces while packing, and just feeling the blocks. And it's a lot of stuff shifting. Stepping into the new paradigm and feeling the excitement, and the fear, but stepping into the fear, and just surrendering, making the choice to surrender into what's supposed to happen, or what is happening.
That's so beautiful. And I think that's something that we don't really talk about that much. Like people see, especially on social media, the highlight reel of like, oh, you did this amazing thing. You like had this epic transformation, and then you like left home and quit your job and moved cross country, and like, wow, that's so cool. And it's so inspirational. But I feel like you've mentioned this a few times already, like there's a lot of fear and resistance and stories that come up as you're like right on the edge of the cliff, like you're about to jump off and see if you can fly. But when you're standing there looking down, you're like, holy fuck, am I sure I want to do this? So how are you, like, what kind of fears are coming up for you, and how are you navigating them?
I guess it's the fear of the unknown. Like, I am really stepping into the unknown. And you could say financially, yes, I know I am capable of starting my business and bits and pieces, but there's that knowing of it's not there yet. So I guess there's just the fears of there's financial worries, I guess, to an extent, having repayments to make and bits and pieces. But there's it's there, but it's more of a what I should be worried about, but it doesn't. There's no fear in my body per se. It's more the head thinking, but it's just there's a comfortability in that aspect, and I guess even just moving out of home and releasing that, I've just found myself stuck, like sitting sometimes, just feeling like, uh, and just being in it, and like start packing and bit and things come up and looking and getting sucked down, you could say, memory lane, and just really having to push through. It's almost like there's, I don't know if it's big energetic blocks or what it is, but there's definitely like there's the excitement. Yeah, I'm going to do this, and even the excitement in that. There's a lot of fear. My little boy, you could say, is really feeling the. He's checking in, or he's reminding me to check in, like, and hold him throughout this, because there's being online and these journeys and all this transformation. There's this, I guess the word shit's getting real. That's
Yeah.
what's alive. That's what's alive. That shit's getting real, and feeling the excitement, but also that I can feel him sort of contracting a little bit, or that part of myself contracting a little bit, like, we're going to be okay. So I guess that's been popping up. But so just checking in with self and holding myself, and just being with that fear. So like I said, fear of I'm going to be seen. One of the big pieces throughout all this course and throughout my journey is, I guess, being seen and being witnessed and showing up. And it's, I guess I've worked through the edges of showing up online and stepping into conversations and showing up, but then it feels like there's another whole edge of actually being in person, even though I'm still, showing up in this work environment and whatnot in person. That going into a whole new paradigm and showing up in person, there's that real, but also like, let's do this. So that's one of the biggest ones, and and then just releasing like, packing up the room, all the bits and pieces, throwing out, lightening the load, and just feeling the heaviness when I start to rip bits and pieces out, and just looking at all like small little bungalow you got a lot of shit. You have a lot of stuff. So it's just moving through, and that part of what I need and what I'm carrying. And so there's a lot about, I just put it to storage, but you're actually going to need that. Would you just release it, pass it on to someone else? So it's just, there's a lot, happening. When I start to clear through that, then that, piece comes up where it's like, okay, I need to hold myself again, and now I've got to do this, and just, being with all the feels and the blocks. And I guess there was a part of me that was not beating myself up, but judging myself, or thinking, oh, you should be doing this, you should be taking on clients now, or you should be already doing this. But I guess it really just sort of dropping in yesterday, like coming from, running big work sites and the stresses. Like, I've always known it was like high stress, but not as, now that I'm starting to release it and seeing everyone latching, like I can feel the energy of this trade world really. Everyone's like, oh, why are you leaving? You shouldn't leave. You should stay. Just stay for a bit longer. And just really feeling those pulls. Oh, we'll pay you more money. Or, you can't leave. And feeling tested in that regard. That safety, like, leaving that safety net, and that safety net, you could say, even getting bigger, when there's dollars getting thrown, and, oh, but we really did it. And it's just like,
Yeah.
releasing those chords. So there's a lot shifting at the moment. So.
That's so beautiful. And I distinctly recall a few of those moments, like, leaving corporate, and they're like, well, is it a money thing? Like, what do you mean you're leaving? Like, are you not happy? Do you need an assistant? Like, what can I do for you? What can I get for you? And they just didn't want to let me go, like, really. And and when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm already making really good money, and now they're throwing more at you. And it's like, you have to really check yourself, because your ego wants to be like, like the ego and the safety, right? So it's like, I want the story of making more money, and my ego wants the safety. So there was that like pull back, and it's like the universe is like, are you sure? Are you sure you're ready for this? Are you sure? Let me just throw one more test at you. Are you actually sure? And then even when we were going through that releasing stage, like I had 2 releasing stages. The first one was when I moved out of my apartment into my friend's basement. So I released, I had a 2-bedroom apartment. So much shit. It was unbelievable. Even after I'd given away and sold everything I possibly could, I still had 2 large dumpsters worth of stuff. And I was like, how do you accumulate this much stuff? Like, I obviously didn't use it all. And then the small amount of stuff I brought with me when we moved into my friend's basement temporarily before we moved across the country, I ended up releasing over half of that again. So that when I moved across country, all of everything I owned fit into the back, everything myself and my partner owned, actually. So 2 people's worth of shit fit into the back of my 2-door sports car. And that's what we drove across the country with. So there was like multiple stages, and it was like, it was hard to release some of that stuff. It was hard to let go of like my dodgeball trophies and the memories that were associated with that, with like the sports stuff and the certifications and the books and like some of the clothes. It was tough.
Yeah, and you could say that part about the universe testing has been a massive piece over the last couple of months, and it's almost got a little bit scary. At some stage, I was at work, and I guess there's something that's I've learned over, I guess, my whole life, something that's been taught to me, but it's really been highlighted that there's no such thing as accidents. And this part about the body is the wisdom of the soul, and the body will check you. And so whether it's the universe checking you, and having a little cut at work and bits and pieces, and this part about when I was wanting to put my reservation in, it was right at the tip of my tongue. It was so alive, but I just couldn't step through that fear of, I guess it was maybe there was this story that I'm letting them down or whatnot, and maybe them getting upset, and it was like right there. Every time I spoke to the boss, it was right at the tip of the tongue, and I couldn't do it. And then I was working, and one of my tools just disappeared. I was like, okay. And I took it as a sign. It's like, now you could say, whether it's your guides or the universe or whatever you want to call it, that now my tools are starting to disappear. Like, I'm like, okay. And then being with that, and I went down to pick up something out of my work bag, and it was like it's like the whole world just stopped for a second and just came crushing into a dead, eerie silence. And it was just this feeling. It's like, okay, I need to get the fuck out of here. Like, as in, and I need to get out of here. I'm going to lose a hand. It was like really like this intense, like, do it moment, like, where it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to do it, where it was like, yeah, you're going to lose a hand if you don't get out of here and do what you're supposed to do, like, or step into your purpose. And I was like, oh, okay, hey boss, yeah, just like to put my resignation in. Thank you for everything. And stuff. I've got things to do. So yeah, there's been definitely tests. Even in the packing, the moving, like being slack. I guess maybe that's just how I roll. I like to leave things to sort of last minute. So then that's really, all right, I've got to get shit done now. Maybe that's something I need to work through a bit. But even with the starting to pack, and like, all right, I'm going to commit these weekends, I'm going to start doing it. Then the boss, oh, do you want to work the weekends? And, extra good money and stuff, and feeling that getting thrown. It's like, no, you said you were going to do this, and here's the money now getting thrown back at you again. And it's just like, oh, boom. It's, lots of tests, you could say, lots of challenges that will try and take you off path, per se. And sometimes it's okay to go a little bit left or right, but it's having that focus and that goal to keep going where you're supposed to be going.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And yeah, I call them with my clients when I'm working one-on-one. This happens all the time. And I talk to them about what I call tower moments, if you're familiar with tarot, where it's like the universe will like give you little hints, but if you don't listen, they get increasingly severe, right? And it's like sometimes that ends in like people losing their job because they weren't willing to let go of it, or like the relationship being ripped away. I had a relationship that was ripped away from me because I wasn't willing to let it go. And it was obviously not serving either of us anymore. And then it kind of felt like it got ripped away in an unceremonial way, where it's like, well, if you had just fucking listened and like let it go when it was meant to, this could have been a lot easier for both of you, and probably like would have been a lot cleaner than the way that it actually happened. So it can happen with work, it can happen with relationships. And the key is just like, how do you catch it sooner next time, right? Like, it's all an evolution of like, do you learn the lesson so next time you don't have to go all the way down to the full tower moment and lose the hand, as an example. I loved what you said earlier too. You mentioned your inner, I think your inner little boy. And I'm curious what your relationship is with him and how you found him, and what that whole, like, is that something that has always been available to you? Is that new? What does that look like for you?
That's probably maybe 2 years ago. You could say the first time I ever jumped off the cliff and wanted to face my stuckness, yeah, there was that feeling, that 2 years ago that I'm broken, as a man,
Mm.
confidence, everything that was just broken, and just watching and watching, and then jumping off. And that was, we did a journey. Um, we did a journey. It was just like a shamanic type of journey from like birth to death, and just going through those phases. And its intention was to pick up where you were, say, stuck on the timeline. And there was music going on, and like throughout being a baby, like pretending to be a baby, and then going out and just going through this whole timeline. And I just remember being frozen on the floor, like, what the
Mm.
fuck is going on? These people are fucking weird. But just in full like fetal freeze. I was in fetal freeze. There was music, there was like chaos, and then there was all these stages. And as in the male journey, like I was just frozen on the floor. And then coming back out, and just, I guess it all landed that I was still that scared little boy, as a walking around as a 30-year-old man, that was still that scared shitless little boy inside of me. So that's when that really got, I guess, say, highlighted. And then it's just
Mm.
a journey ever since, doing some journey with him, and just checking in with him when I do feel that, that uncomfortability starts to pop up in the body. And how even now you could say it still speaks to me, like physically, like my right nostril, if I'm not um, clear or in my truth, my right nostril will start to block up. And
Oh,
like,
interesting.
and when that happens, I'll just put my hand on my heart and just check in with him and speak, and I guess, and it's a reminder to say, check in. If I check in where I am at when that happens, it's like I might be in my head and blah, 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 off in Lalaland. So coming back and checking in, with him, and saying, hey, we're safe, or we got this, or I've got you. That, it's like almost like a grounding. He grounds me, or that part of me grounds me. And then even just checking in, taking a couple of breaths, that nostril will clear instantly. Like, it's a real, it's been a journey to be with be with that, thinking I need surgery or something like that, but noticing like how, the body is checking me to where I'm at and what's going on in my head, or what stories I'm running. So that's been a journey with him, and meeting different parts of self, and going back. I guess you can look at it, we have kinks in the timeline of our upbringing, and doesn't have to be anything major, but there's lots of times when maybe we abandoned ourselves due to whatever was happening, so that we can just go back in and just hold that little boy, or that teenage boy, or whatever it is, and we can just, it can be as simple as just putting the hand on the heart, or giving yourself a hug, and just speaking to that moment that we're safe, or I've got you, or whatever the words that need to be spoken at the time, and just feeling into that and trusting it, and
Mm.
feeling stories like, this is weird, I'm talking to, I'm holding myself, or I'm saying, hey, we're safe, like to a third person, or whatever it might be. But it's just, yeah, it's truth. There is those parts of ourselves that are still stuck, or still scared from those traumas, or just moments of feeling alone, or whatever. And those energies, or those parts of ourselves are still there, and they still will, show up here and there. But as a part of checking in and grounding ourselves, that we're not often, again, that the body, or that little boy will be like, excuse me, take a breath, come back. Yeah, I'm like, okay.
Oh, I love that. That, like, excuse me, please, we need attention here. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. It's amazing too how the body reminds you, right? Like, I know I've not heard of the right nostril. That's fascinating. I'm used to it being like a throat, right? Like the throat feels tight, or I'll notice when people start saying something that they feel like a little nervous about, and they'll start all of a sudden like like clearing their throat. I've noticed even I do it. I'm like, there's an edge of truth coming up in there. But the right nostril, that's a totally new one. And like, like to me, but it makes sense because breath and masculine side of the body, giving your truth, right? So
Mm,
all connected, and the sinuses are all connected. That's
yeah,
really super fascinating to me.
yeah. It's been
And
a,
so you
been.
went on this, go ahead.
And I was just saying, the nostril piece has been a long, long journey, a long, long journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like that must have been really hard to figure out too, right? Like, why is this stuffing up all the time? Like, what's going
It
on
wasn't.
here?
It wasn't. I was told. I guess doing the work that my mum does, she was telling me early on. These things, but I just wasn't landing. I wasn't ready to hear it or receive it. I was getting polyps in there, and I did have, you could say, surgery, and there's all these bits and pieces, but I wasn't ready to step up and learn those lessons or
Mm,
understand. I wasn't. So I guess, yeah, it's more been over the last couple of years and seeing the difference of when I'm showing up in a space when I'm happy, and the clarity, you could say, whether it's in my sinuses, the clarity when I'm in a happy space, or if I'm upset or my heart's closed or I'm angry, that this, channel does block up. When it can,
mm,
it's really been a process of like, something's wrong with me, because it's so instant. It's like, how does it just block? How does it just block? And then taking some breaths and coming back to the body just clears, and I can breathe free again. It's like, yeah. So for me, I guess it's been a really powerful tool, listening to the body, and yeah, the wisdom of the body, and how it checks that monkey mind of ours. Yeah.
and make sure you're in alignment too, right? And it's so beautiful that you're listening to that, because that probably like would have, if you had stayed out of alignment, again, we talk about the tower moments, right? And like that type of sensitivity could very easily have turned into like who knows what, some type of like very major nostril or like sinus related issue, because it was constantly plugged, because you were constantly out of your truth, right?
Yeah. And that's, I guess, and that's a huge piece, and a huge, I don't want to say failing, but there's a massive piece in, you could say, the Western world of, this. I was doing a health retreat, and I was speaking to the gut and even the tonsils, and how, tonsillitis and all these things, our bodies aren't dumb. I think is the word. We have tonsils for a reason, and then there are alarm
Yeah.
bells that something's not right, and how that, because of our inability or lack of knowing or teachings of listening to the body and the wisdom that the body holds, that, this thing's inflamed, let's just chop it out. And it's so simple, because we don't want to do the work. We don't want to step up and face and have a look. Hey, maybe what I'm eating is no good, or maybe whether so I'm not speaking my truth or my heart's closed. We're having to, do some work around that, or actually speak our truth. That it's easier just to, you know, chop. Yeah, we have. Yeah, there's no such thing as coincidence. There's no such thing, even just stubbing your toe or nicking your finger. If you actually check in with yourself where your head was at, or yeah, it knows everything. You can't lie to an extent.
Yeah.
you can run
Yeah.
you can run stories for a certain amount of time, but yeah, things will start to manifest. And I'm
Yeah.
sure, like, this being here, and this did start to, when I was really off the rails per se, when I was partying and doing drugs and bits and pieces, like this really started to mess up, or play up, was swelling up and all these things, and just being like, why? And but now reflecting, like, how out of, you could say, alignment I was, is, the body was flaring something crazy, but I guess that was needed. It's all a part of the process to an extent, but it's, yeah, whether we're willing to look. Like, even coming into this conversation, my nose was stuffy. It's like, oh, what's going on? Like, what's first thing? You haven't checked in, you haven't breathed, but even now, just speaking, feeling the clarity, the clarity come through in that. It's, yeah, it's fascinating when we're actually aware of what's happening in our bodies and the sensations, and being with it.
Hmm. That's such a beautiful segue too into the sensations, because that's obviously what a lot of the somatic sexology work and the self-pleasure module talks about. And I would really love to dive into, being the first male that we've interviewed, male-bodied human that we've interviewed, and coming from a trades background, which is traditionally a very like masculine, not super in the body trade. I'm real, or like, career, I guess. I'm just really curious what that shift was like for you. Like, what was it like for you to say like, oh yeah, I think I'm going to do sexuality work, and like I'm going to learn to tap into the body and like start to like honor my emotions and like completely move into like an opposite of what I'm living in right now? Like, how did that decision process work for you, and what was that journey like?
Yeah, there's still been some truth not spoken. If I'm honest, I'm going to call myself out and speak that there's been some truth not spoken as far as what I am doing. Just feeling that retraction in the body, and there's almost been stories like, what's the point? They're not going to get it. But I have, different people. There's been that feeling. You could say the body open, and I guess I've been playing that when the body does open, when that's asked, and speaking to it, versus when it's closing and wondering. It's like, yeah, maybe because that person doesn't need to hear it, or whether it's just that's my resistance I need to step through. So that's been, now that I'm just speaking to it, it's coming like that. Yeah, the navigating of when to speak and when not to speak. And I guess that's in all parts of life to an extent. When's it actually going to serve to share, and when is it not? And yeah, it's been very, trade background, generally, there are people, you could say like myself, who have been, you could say, living in two separate worlds my whole life due to my upbringing. There's always been that, you could say, whether you want to call it spiritual or natural, holistic or whatever, there's always sort of been that. So I've always been navigating those two worlds. But yeah, as of late, especially now towards the end, it's really getting sort of critical part of the job. And everyone's like, I can't believe you're leaving. You're leaving us. What are you doing? What are you doing? And it's
how dare you?
Yeah, how dare you? And it's like, that's really been challenging to honoring. This is not about you. I'm more important than this building. This building's going to survive. Someone else will step in. It might not be as smooth flowing as if I was there, but it is what it is. This is where I'm at, and this is what I'm doing. So yeah, I guess as far as speaking it's been challenging. I've been feeling into the comfortabilities and the uncomfortabilities, and the word sexuality development I've used a couple of times. More other times it's been stepping into self-development work, and I guess gauging at their openness to then speak into the sexuality pieces. So I'm not sure if that's, I guess, doesn't feel like fear, but it's just gauging on the situation of, or that's just chickening out chickening out from speaking now that I'm speaking to it. But knowing, I guess there's a feeling, the feeling in the body when it's open, that, hey, I need to actually share this with this person because there's something there where someone else, whether it's that doesn't need to be shared, or there's no, it's a hard one because there's navigating that, because it's, some people aren't, their whole lifetime they're not ready, or it's not in this experience, it's not going to be for them to step up or not step up. The experience that they're having is what, this lifetime is going to be. So I guess it's an interesting thing to navigate, to who to speak to, where you're actually going to be heard, and where it's going to be falling on deaf ears, even though that we always will be planting a seed, or maybe in the next life or whenever that seed will land. So yeah, navigating it. I've been picturing doing, say, self-pleasure circles for a toolbox every morning, and needing the need for that. And I guess it's also been hard because it's like where I am at is a really needed space where men are showing up, and speaking their truth and their emotions, and talking about life, because it is a very and just and just sitting there, and it's been hard to hear the conversations. As you could say, I'm getting more into my path and hearing the conversations and how to speak to them without making them, not that it is wrong, because that's just where they're at, but how to speak and give a different perspective, especially when you could say, I'm so far this way and they're so far that way. So I can't just speak to them like I'm speaking to you, because it'll just be, so I guess it's been navigating that, navigating the speech, and the magic of speech, and how we speak, how we speak, and how that will be received. So it's been a good playground, you could say, to use different words and see how that goes through, versus I know some words where people just bypass. As soon as they hear spiritual, they just they'll just bypass it. So about calling it like it's real, it's life, it's work, call it spiritual, call it too woo woo, whatever, dealing with your shit, stepping up to those challenges that are going to follow you to every workplace or every career you go to, every relationship you go to. It doesn't matter. Grass is never greener unless you're going to step up to that challenge that needed to be stepped up to, that lesson that is there.
Yeah.
Lesson. So it's been a process, and sharing with people and getting praise. I'm sure they're like, they're not understanding. Like one of them particularly is like, I don't understand what you're doing, but I know you know, from knowing you for the last 6-7 months, whatever you do, you're going to do good at. So it's like, yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks, mate. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's been like, I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah, you'll do, you know, you'll do good type of thing. So yeah, it's definitely been a process. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely had those moments as well where I've had friends be like, I have no idea what you do anymore. I don't understand 95% of it, but you seem really happy and it seems like you're enjoying life. So, like, yay, which really sometimes is the most you can ask for, right? Like, not everybody, like you said, not everybody's going to get what we're doing when we're on the bleeding edge of the new paradigm. We're on, like, really the trailblazers of this new movement. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody's ears. Not everybody's ready. Not everybody's ready to even want to hear the words. And like sometimes, yeah, you have to even change the way you say things. Like for some people, I call myself a tantric alchemist, which is the closest to the truth of the actual work I do on a day-to-day basis. To other people, I have to say I'm a sex coach. To other people, I have to say I'm a life coach, because sex coach means I'm a prostitute. Not that there's anything wrong with that, obviously, but that's not what I actually do. So we don't need that association, right? Some people think I'm a sex worker, and then technically I am a sex worker. Like, what is a sex worker? A person who charges to work with sexual energy. Great. That's literally by definition what I am. So it's really interesting how there's like all of these tied up with an actual one word or with a phrase, and you have to learn based on your audience, like even what your title is. Like, what do you call yourself now? Never mind, what are you actually just doing, right? I'm curious to know, like, I know for me, it was a very easy decision to like lean into sexuality, but for you, I really want to know, like, what was the decision? Like, why sex work? How, like, that's different than just spiritual work. So why did this specific movement call to you?
My lack of sex. The lack of intimate connections that I was having, my lack of confidence, that feeling of brokenness as a man sexually. I was feeling broken, like the fears that I created and stored up to the point where I could not engage. Like I was scared shitless of women. There's not a chance in how you'd have me sitting here having this conversation. Not a chance. Like
Really?
that's only, you know, go back maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. Not a chance. I'd be scratching my head out or thinking, like it's just. So I guess there was that feeling broken as a man. I guess when it came to women, was feeling broken and knowing I needed to do some work around that. So that was, most of like it was the word tantra is what I'd say got me, and then the road just went deep diving into all different pieces. And I guess the more I was doing it, the more I was wanting to share. You know, after I'd do a 7-day training or immersion and coming out just spat out on the other side, like everyone's like, "Oh, what'd you do?" I'm like, "You really want to know?" And just speaking to that and seeing people's eyes light up, or just like net, and just knowing, oh wow, this, and seeing, I guess seeing it for myself, but seeing it in friends, relationships, and other people, that it's so needed. It's so needed, and this I just sort of naturally came, I guess, from the work I was doing with myself and wanting to share that. That's where it came from, and it's still, even now, some of, you could say, the callings or the pieces that are getting thrown at me. It's like, I can't do that. I can't do. Who are you to be doing that? But it's just like, okay, let's do this. You know, let's go for the ride. And I guess like coming into this course, Vic posted a question up: should men be working with women in this space? And my body was a full yes, and that really, like, that activated. And I guess I was in between sort of trainings and knowing there was something coming, and knowing it needed to be that it was going to be big. There was this part of me that was feeling like I have things to do here, and there's more trainings or things to do. And then Vic posted, it was the question, the basis was, should men be working with women in the sexuality space? And my body was just like, bang, it's like, fuck yes. And it was 100%, like, there's, you know, I understand, you know, we could say women's circles and men's circles, but a man holding space for a woman or a woman holding space for a man, you can't, or whatever, man, woman labeling, that's really aware these days, navigating that part. So sorry if that, but that there's a different
Oh, it's
energy.
all good.
You can't get the same healing or transmission between a woman and a woman, or a man and a man. I'll argue with that to the day I die if someone wants to box. But you can't get the same transmission with a man holding space for women, especially, you could say for women, from my experience, with so much of the stuff being caused by men in relations and traumas, that being able to have space held and seen by a man in that, you can't get that from a woman holding that space. So, and that was like really activated. It's like, it's still feeling the edginess of, holding space for women. And that was what was true and alive and activating. So I booked up for a call, and here I am 6 months later talking to Stephanie on a live interview. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love it. And that's actually something that was really alive in this round, in this container too. And I think maybe not so much for men, but like women, we're conditioned from a very young age. People that are born into female bodies are conditioned that like you stay away from men. We've got girls' change rooms and we've got boys' change rooms, and the girls go into this bathroom and the boys go into that bathroom. Like there's a lot of separation when it comes to nudity, sexuality, and stuff as children. So like even from like, age 2 or 3, it's like, no, these things happen separately. And there is something very unique about men holding space for men, women holding space for women, right? Like it's a different energy for all 3 of those. And then women and men being together, it's definitely a unique energy, especially when you layer in that, like alive in our container this round, there was a lot of rape trauma. There was a lot of sexual trauma in this round. And it was beautiful being the first round where we had a men's and a women's container. It was beautiful for us to witness that get triggered, and then the epic way that the men held the women through that. Like you guys were awesome. It was like better. We could never have, like, not that we would ever plan triggering someone's sexual trauma, obviously, but like it couldn't have been planned better is what I'm trying to say. It was just so beautiful the way it came up for so many women. And then the men and then eventually it got to the point where they were asking for it. They're like, hey, I'm recognizing I need a man to hold me through this. This is a trauma that I'm like demonizing men for. And to truly heal it, I need men to be safe, which means I need to be healed by a man. Like that's just the reality of the situation. That was their truth. And I don't think that would have been alive had there not been a men's container this round.
Yeah, it's magic. It's magic. And so needed. It's so needed. And yeah, there is a lot of, you could say, judgment. There could be judgment from the outside and the uncomfortabilities. And I guess it's also knowing, because it's a huge thing. It is huge to hold space and witness, or for me anyway, for me feeling like it is a huge thing and honoring to hold space for women and to guide them and to see them in their process and to hold space for that. It's huge. And as it is for men as well, but like there is a different energy in that, and knowing, for rape and all these huge things. And I guess even just from doing exchanges with the women and holding space for them and them sharing like from their stuff and the potency of that. So I guess that's just been, you could say, more affirmations per se that I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing. And yeah, it's edgy, but it's like bring the edges.
I love that.
Get uncomfortable.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So many people get so used to, especially with sexuality, we get so caught up in it has to feel comfortable and it has to feel good, and you're allowed to say no if you don't like it. And like, yes, that's true. Consent is a thing. Let's all practice like consensual sex, and that's very important. But like sex is just like anything else. Sometimes you've got to get a little bit out of your comfort zone in order to really have those really amazing experiences, right? Like you don't have a life that is amazing without getting outside of your comfort zone. The same thing is said for your sex life. You don't have a sex life that's amazing without getting outside of your comfort zone. And sometimes you've got to be willing to step into the edges. And that might mean, as a female person, working with a male practitioner who witnesses you, or vice versa. For a male who has trouble speaking to women, jumping into witnessing them in a self-pleasure program is definitely going to lean you into an edge there for sure. And it's just, I think people get really bunged up and like, it has to turn me on and I have to be excited, otherwise I'm not doing it. And they create these stories and they almost traumatize themselves because of that. Where it's like, if we could just let the energy move and just be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable but still curious what's alive, our life becomes so much juicier and so much more electric.
It's, yeah, uncomfortabilities and being in the comfort zone is, getting uncomfortable has been my story for the last 2 years on my war path. I guess the words there, I've been on a war path for the last, with my fears and my comfortabilities, and doing the work I do, I comfort people. I do air conditioning and I comfort their environment so they can be comfortable. Well, I'm out here getting uncomfortable as fuck, uncomfortable and facing all the edges, and now bringing that into this new paradigm, bringing that in with an open heart, and even though it's going to be uncomfortable, providing that comfort for holding that comfort, holding that space for them to be in their own uncomfortability, to create more comfort within themselves. And they have a choice, and choice, like this choice piece has been a huge process at the moment, and seeing people's lack of choice, this being powerless with choice, and you're being controlled. And really, I've just gone totally off topic now, so yeah,
it's beautiful. I love it.
Like, it's really alive at the moment with my nieces and my nephews, and trying to, and it's with everything, choice, people's lack of understanding of choice. That doesn't matter who told you what or what situation you're in, that you always have a choice. And in there, whether it's choosing to get into that uncomfortability or choosing that's re-empowering yourself while making that choice, and that no one made you feel like that. You chose in that moment. That's what you chose to feel, and you can choose to not feel that. You can choose to step up to that. You can choose to feel something else, so then more of this can flow through, and that you have a choice. You can choose to step up, or you can choose to sit down. That's okay if you choose that too, but knowing that's your choice. Choice.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Well, and I mean, people get, that's another topic that I think can be quite polarizing for people, because they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, I didn't choose to get raped. I didn't choose to lose my job. I didn't choose this. I didn't choose that. And it's like, well, okay, no, maybe the actual event you didn't choose, but the story that you're telling about it, the relationship that you're creating to it, and what you're making it mean about your life, that is all a choice, right? And that is going to completely change the way that you evolve over time, and the future stories that you choose to tell. They're all going to be based on those big moments. Like, you lost your job. Do you choose to tell an empowering story, or do you choose to tell a story of being on welfare? That's your choice. Losing the job might not have been, but how you relate definitely is.
Yeah, and I guess, and that's the piece. It's like, even if you could say, yeah, you didn't have a choice, you didn't have a choice, as in, yeah, your job got thrown away, or you were, sexual abuse or whatever, that you didn't have a choice in that moment. You have a choice of what you want to do with that. You have a choice. It's like, if this thing didn't work out, it's like, okay, I can feel that, and now I can choose to use this to empower myself, or I can choose to be, feel like shit and be in story, and that's okay too, because it's, but you have a choice at the end of the day. And whether you didn't have a choice in that moment, you have a choice what you want to do with it. And like you said, it's, what do you want to do with that?
That's so beautiful.
What change? What choices are you willing to make?
Yeah, and like, to bring it full circle, you're a perfect example of that, right? Like, what choice you want to change, what choices are you willing to make? 2 years ago, you're like, I'm gonna like jump off this cliff of professional development, and you've consistently been on like this war path of change, of choosing change, choosing uncomfortable, to the point where now you're moving across country, you've left your job, right? If we just bring it back to that gypsy life that you mentioned at the very beginning, that's all about consistently choosing, and choosing that there's something better out there than what you've been fed by society, we could say.
Yeah, and like, on that, it's, I guess, there's this part of surrendering to what you could say the signs or the universe is saying, but no matter if it's God or Buddha, the universe saying to do it, you are the one making the choice. Yeah, like, and you can choose not to. Maybe, I'll end up losing an arm, or I will be, stay in this work forever. And if that's what I choose, and that's okay. But you still, no matter what signs or magic or whatever someone's offering, that's your choice. It's your choice to step into that uncomfortability. It's your choice to follow those signs. And that's you doing it. Yeah, there is higher powers or universal Mother Earth or whatever you want to call it. But at the end of the day, you're making that choice. And really owning and honoring yourself in those choices that you make, and remembering that you're choosing to do that. Because you could go and, you're not gifted. There's gifts there. You have gifts to access, but you have to choose to step into that. And it's your choice. No matter who says what or showed you, or what I say or what Stephanie says, that it's your choice to receive that information. Your choice to step up and
that. Yeah, it's so beautiful. And it gives you so much empowerment and like personal responsibility. I think it's so fascinating how when we start talking about this work with people, sometimes they get really triggered when I say, like, look around you, everything that you love, you created that, be proud of yourself. And I'll look around everything that you hate, everything that you're complaining about, every negative story you're carrying, you literally created all of that as well by your own choices. And that can be really hard for people to take. That can be a really tough pill to swallow. But like the point is, if you've created it, you can change it. If you hate your fucking job, knowing that you've created the job you hate means that you can create a job you love. It just makes it so much easier. So we get to step into this world of empowerment around our sexuality, around our career, around our spirituality, around our love, finances, whatever. But we have to be willing to take responsibility for both sides of the spectrum. Otherwise, it doesn't work if we're like, oh, I'm only going to take responsibility for the good stuff. It's like, well, that's not really how it works.
And that's the big uncomfortability piece, and responsibility, accountability of those choices, because it's all it can do all this part. And like, it's for my nieces and nephews, every time they're it's like just really bringing them right back. It's like, so what choice did you make? What was it? Oh, I said no to doing the dishwasher. It's like, well, next time, maybe it might not be, fuck yeah, I want to do the dishwasher, but knowing that if I choose to do that, this is not all going to happen. And not that it's your fault that all this happened, but it's like, where can we be accountable for the time or our role in that?
Yeah.
Our role in that, because we be in a crappy environment or whatever. But it's like, okay, but what are you going to choose to do in that? You still have a choice of how, you want this crappy situation to turn out, as always, or what you want to do with it.
Oh, it's so beautiful. There's such an important delineation here between like taking responsibility and blaming, right? I think you like really hit that really well, where it's like, yeah, if you chose not to do the dishwasher and then that created all this long realm of consequences, we're not blaming you for all the consequences. We're not saying, oh, this is all your fault, but we are saying you have the power to not trigger this pattern by making a different choice. So it's not about blaming, but it is about empowered decision making.
Yeah. And that's the piece that's really been highlighted for me. And I'm sure maybe for a lot of kids, even just individuals themselves, that this lack of feeling unempowered or being controlled, that, when you can take accountability for your choices and knowing what you can do, that it's building that confidence up again, that power, knowing, re-empowering self. It's not me giving, them their power back or anything. It's just bringing the awareness of choice and being accountable, and forget about all the that happened from that. It's like, just come right back. What was the thing that you could have done? And it's like, but I don't want to, and just the resistance to even look or go that. And it's like, I'm not saying that all this is your fault, because there was choices to say, I could have made differently, or this person could have made differently. Like, it's a combined thing, but it's looking about what could you do? What choice could you make to possibly not be in that again? And even if as long as you make that choice and that still happens, like, you're still going to feel empowered in that situation, because you did, and you took accountability for your actions. And it's so easy to blame, even as adults. It's not just kids, but even as adults, it's so easy to say, oh, you made me feel like this. It's like, by you saying that, you're giving your power to that person, that they can make you feel, and say, I'm choosing to feel like this because this is what's alive for me, and I'm choosing to not feel it anymore. It's you, not choice.
It's such a beautiful, we've witnessed that so much too over, I think, the last year, right? With COVID and like open and close and jobs lost and jobs gained. And social welfare, and we can travel, now we can't travel, we can leave our province, now we can't leave our province, now we can see our friends, now we can't see our friends, right? So like, I feel like so many of us have been navigating this like needing to like not choose victimization, right? And having to like move through that, because it would be very easy for people to say, oh, well, like my life sucks because of COVID. My life sucks because the government didn't handle COVID correctly. My life sucks because China released COVID. Like I've heard it all, right? Like everything from like super blaming of an entire nation to blaming of a certain president to whatever, to like, oh, well, this person across the street isn't wearing a mask, therefore my life sucks, right? Like we're so quick to say, oh, I'm really uncomfortable right now, my life sucks, and I'm going to project it onto all these other issues. And there just happens to be a lot of issues right now. So it happens to be very easy to do. And it's such a great melting pot of opportunities for us to just like, oh no, like, okay, I gave my power to that person down the street that's not wearing a mask. I get to take that back. Oh no, I gave my power away to a president that I don't like. Now I get to take that back. And you said it perfectly. You're giving your power away when you do that. You're literally giving it away to other people in external circumstances. And this is such a great opportunity to start just like, where are all the threads that I've pushed away my power that I can just pull back into my being, so that I get to choose if I'm having a good day or a bad day, and it's not dependent on anyone else or anything else around me.
Yeah. It was alive to say this at the start, and so it's popped up now. But Teal Swan did a 2020 prediction. I was watching her a while ago, and she did a 2030 prediction, and she was speaking to, this was before COVID kicked in, about this karma train coming. Don't quote me on it, but it was something, my interpretation, about a karma train coming in 2020, and whether you like it or not, you could say it's coming, and whether you choose to jump on board, then you could say the outcome would be different. Otherwise, you're going to get dragged through the shit regardless. Yeah, it's coming. There's no avoiding what was sort of coming to a certain extent. But is that you can choose to jump on and step up to these lessons and look at the that's happening from COVID. But it's like, okay, I've got the time here to look at certain things that I didn't have. I can choose to use this time to face my demons or my fears, or to do different things, and choose. And I know personally, because I've been through the waves of, but it's like, okay, how's this serving me?
Yeah.
Yes, it's okay to feel this frustration, but you can say sharing certain things or speaking or being really, and is it really serving me? Is that gonna, it's like, okay, I'm not, and it's not like I'm not disassociating with what's actually happening, but it's acknowledging that, and it's like, okay, that's happening, but what can I do? Yeah, what is the choice I can make to not have this suck as bad as it possibly can, if you're choosing to be in the vortex of shit that is flying around at the moment, or the vortex of, I don't want to call it shit, but the vortex of that certain energy. There is a lot, it's a deep hole that you can fall into and get sucked into, and bringing awareness to that, to what you're speaking. And that came with the Joyce part, when someone comes in and it's like checking in with yourself. Where's this coming from? What is the purpose of me saying you're selfish, or you're this, or you're that? Like, where's that coming from? How can you say, oh, I'm feeling, and it's really hard, I guess, when I try to explain that to friends, or to the nieces or nephews, or that, how are you feeling? To say, oh, you're being selfish because you did this, you did that. You're just giving your power, same thing, you're giving your power away. It's like, you're giving that power, you're like blowing them up like they're King Kong, because they can make you feel like this. And it's like, well, check in with yourself, and how can we share? Say, hey, I'm feeling a bit frustrated because of these, and really it's you that's choosing to feel like that. You have a choice of how
to. Well, with that, I feel like we've actually come really full circle. We've been chatting for a whole hour already. I feel like it's been 15 minutes. It's like crazy. I just looked at the time to see if there was comments. So I'm like, holy shit, this live's going for 54 minutes already. That's incredible. It's like our longest one so far. So thank you. That's amazing. I feel like we could probably talk for like 12 hours. I'm just seeing that flow happen. So in the interest of everybody who's watching this time, I think we'll pause it here. Let me just see if there's any comments. Sarah says, wahoo. Mary says, take that power back. Yes, so so important for us to start doing that, especially now. We've got several likes here. So beautiful. Well, I think let's wrap it here. And guys, if you loved this, clearly Jeremy and I could talk about all things for many hours. So if you want to see him back, we can have him back. Let us know. And if you have questions for Jeremy specifically, I know that there's going to be some men in this container that if they catch this live, we'll have some questions for you. So I'm feeling into your journey and feeling like it's going to resonate with some of the people that are in this container for sure. So men, if that's you, ask him questions. You can do it in the drop down below. I mean, women as well, obviously. But I have a feeling there's a few people that this is particularly going to resonate with. And Jeremy is also open if you guys can DM him. Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong there. Okay, cool. I'm not just speaking out of turn.
Have a chat, but warning, you might have to feel if you chat with me. So yeah.
Beautiful. And all of your contact information is in the post. Jeremy will answer any questions in the comments. And Jeremy, thank you so much for what is it, 6:30 in the morning there now, or 7:30? It's pretty early for you, isn't it?
7:40 now. I've got to get to work.
Yeah. Okay, good. So it's a good thing we stopped. Okay. So you get to work. Don't be late on your last week. Have an amazing time.
Don't tell the boss.
Beautiful. And thank you for sharing so much your space with us. And thank you everyone for the Sex Lab for being here. And we'll catch you all again soon.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for listening. Big love.
So beautiful. So much love.